So the first thing I'm going to do is just start with a little bit of oil.
Okay.
And one of the first things is we have our lobster bones or bodies.
A lot of flavor in there, right?
A lot of flavor in there, especially the bottom sections. These still have a lot of meat in the legs.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do is when you clean them, you basically pull the heads off here. And they have gills down the side. You want to scrape those out because they can turn your broth bitter, right? And that's really the only trick. Some people like to roast these, which you can do. Sometimes I feel like it creates a little bit of a, nuttier flavor, which sometimes can be a little overpowering. So I usually like to just kind of start them right off in my pot.
So you saute them a little first?
I like to dry them out a touch just in the pan, all right? All right, so next I'm just going to slice a little bit of garlic.
And your signature back slice?
Yes, the signature back slice, which is just kind of allowing the knife to slice through, which actually helps you're not tearing the cells, which gets the flavor of the garlic a little bit more mellow. And then we have some celery that we cut up. I have a little bit of fennel here.
Fennel's a great pairing with lobster.
You know what? It's fantastic, and I know a lot of people. I think fennel kind of gets a bad rap sometimes.
It does, yeah.
But I don't know. Caramelized fennel is like one of my favorite flavors, and it does meld really, really well with the lobster itself.
Yeah. I think people just automatically associate it with licorice.
Right.
And it is anisey, licoricey, but I hate licorice and I love fennel.
I'm the same way. So we have a little bit of white onion here.
Okay.
And one of the things, this is I'm cutting these all pretty thin because I want to do this really quickly.
Okay.
So if we were at home, you could, you have your extra lobster shells around. You can cut them a larger dice and simmer that for a little bit longer period of time. So we've added our white onion, and I'm just going to give this a little bit of a stir here. So I have a little bit of leek here. I'm going to add that to it. Here I have some lemongrass. It's just a small piece. What I like to do is I usually just use the back of my knife and kind of bang it.
So you just kind of release the oils there?
Yep, I'm just breaking the cells to allow the flavor to extract because it is a very tough, lemongrass is pretty tough. So you break it up, that allows the flavor to come out a little bit. I have some ginger here. When you're in a hurry, ginger, the skin of ginger is actually pretty neutral. So we can just slice it and throw it right in because we're going to strain it. A nice trick with ginger, when you do have to peel it, is actually just to use a spoon, which is one of my favorite things. And you can just take your spoon and the skin comes right off.
Yes, you do that without getting off any of the actual middle part of the ginger.
Right.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Okay. So as this is cooking, so this is kind of like a meld, dashi is technically a Japanese broth. I'm going to take a little white wine here and pour this in. We're going to let that reduce down. I'm just going to come back over here and I have some miso that I'm going to add to our broth.
So a lot of flavor going on here.
Yes, a lot of flavor. And that's kind of brings out that umami, the fermented bean paste.
We use a lot of miso too. It's a great flavor.
It's so good.
Definitely.
I'm going to add some soy to this. All right. And now we've kind of sweated out our vegetables.
Okay.
I'm going to add the tomato paste over there if you want to grab it.
Sure.
And I'm going to come in and just add some cold water right to our stock. All right, so a lot of times with tomato paste, when you make stocks, if it's a dark stock, a lot of times you would actually cook the tomato paste out. So you would add it to your vegetables.
Kind of caramelize it.
Caramelize it, and that's going to give your stocks a really beautiful color. This is also slightly for flavor, but it's also for color.
Sure.
Because one of the things you want with lobsters, they're red. You want to
Yeah,
have
you
a
want it
really
to look like
beautiful
lobster,
red lobster stock. All right. So here I'm just going to add a little bit of salt to start off. And then we're basically going to bring this to a simmer. Once it simmers, at the end we're going to shut it off and we'll add our bonito flakes and our kelp or kombu.
Okay.
And then the dashi will be ready to go. I like to do a little sherry vinegar with this. And that's actually something too that I'm going to add back to the broth.
Nice.
I think sherry vinegar goes really great with lobster. Of course, lemon. Let's take a nice pinch of thyme here. Drop this guy in. One last thing. So now we have our stock. It's boiling really nicely.
Yeah.
So now what we want to do is I'm actually going to shut the heat off. I'm going to take my kombu or kelp
cool.
and just add this in.
Where did you get that from?
So those also you can get usually at Asian markets. And they do, Wegmans and Whole Foods does a really great job.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, so we're going to come in, and now this is bonito flakes.
Dancing bonito flakes.
Yes, and it's beautiful to kind of watch. If you want to garnish, when we have hot broth, we can always garnish with a little of those. And if they go to the table, you see them just kind of moving around, which is really cool. This is nice. I like this because it gives you almost like this feel of bacon a little bit. Without it, you have that smoky flavor, that real umami kind of taste.